And welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I am Vlad, and this is season 15, episode 25. I'm gonna be talking about the Mercury layer with the two people behind this project. I have Nicholas Gregory, who is on the show for the fourth time probably, and his CTO from Commerce Block, Tom Trevethan. Welcome, guys.
Hey,
Hey, thanks for having us.
Okay, so Nicholas, I've had you on the show 3 or 4 times before this.
Mhm.
And each time you spoke about, I think the first time it was about MercuryWallet, and then you spoke about CivKit. So you had two episodes about MercuryWallet, and you
Mhm.
had one about CivKit. And
Yes.
now you're gonna talk about the Mercury layer. So what's the difference between MercuryWallet, and then you spoke about state chains, and now Mercury layer? What's this?
Yeah, so they're all state chains. So originally, the original idea about state chains was from Ruben Samson, which needed any prev out. We worked for a few years to kind of build a version of state chains without any prev out. But at the time, we very much focused on building a kind of state chain wallet with some sort of coin swap facility. And, I noticed you're sponsored by Wasabi, but our goal was to build like an alternative privacy wallet to say Wasabi and Samurai. And although we got some good volumes and good tractions, it didn't really take off if we're honest. And in that period, though, we there was some new things that happened in Bitcoin. Taproot came out and Schnorr signatures, and we were able to build a more blinded version of state chains. So the original version, we although the swaps were trustless and we didn't know who people were swapping to, we did see Bitcoin addresses. So as you know, you can censor those. I think you've talked about that previously with other projects you've worked on. But with the Schnorr stuff, we're totally blinded. We don't see any of the Bitcoin addresses at all. So we felt going forward, why not basically rewrite a lot of it, which is essentially what we did with the Schnorr stuff. And a lot of the work we did was actually deleting the code, make it a lot smaller and just make it like a generic alternative layer two. And I say alternative because there's not many true layer twos out there, but make it a true layer two that other people can build on. So we are going to release a wallet, but it's going to be, kind of like an open source thing for people to play with. But we're really more focused on being a layer two. And we are working with other projects that want to build on us instead. And that's the big change. That's the big change. So even though we were always a layer two, we really focused on the wallet, building a privacy solution. Now it's really just building a generic layer two like Liquid or something like that.
I guess you opened a can of worms there because some people say that Liquid is not a layer 2 and sidechains in general are not layer 2s and only Lightning is a layer 2.
Well, I mean,
How,
look, everything's a layer two on top of Bitcoin, including an ETF and Coinbase. I guess I always think the best analogy for layer two is can you retrieve your funds without interactivity or coordination with the entity? With state chains, you can. You always have a back out transaction. So if you wake up one day and Mercury layer's gone, you can retrieve your funds. And the same with Lightning. I think some of the others you mentioned, and that's no knock on them, you can't. But yeah, that's the way I would argue a layer two is.
so you just said that Liquid is not a layer 2 because you need interaction to peg out and you need permission from the Federation. So by your definition, it's not a layer 2.
It's a tool. There's nothing wrong with side chains. We used to build side chains before Mercury. It's just these are different tools in the box. You have spanners, hammers, screwdrivers. We're not pro or anti them. For example, on CivKit, we're probably going to be integrating either Cashew or Fedi. That's not a true layer two, but it's a better use case for CivKit than say integrating state chains. I think for Bitcoin to scale to work, we're going to need all these tools, and it's not going to be a one size fits all. And I think that's probably some of the challenges we have now. Lightning, which is getting bashed a lot because I think it was maybe marketed as a retail solution to us, and we build Lightning software. It's probably more a B2B protocol, and it's not the final solution that's going to probably end up in someone's mobile wallet unless that's custodial.
Oh man, that's a bummer. I'm gonna let Tom, maybe he's more optimistic about this. What do you think about Mercury Layer, Tom? Is it gonna be better and more reliable than existing sidechains? Will it fulfill some of the promises that the Lightning Network broke in its marketing?
well, the fundamental difference. Okay, so you can compare it to Lightning, and I mean, yeah. Following on from the previous kind of discussion about layer 2. I mean, people get very obsessed about the meaning of this term, but lots of people are willing to define layer 2 as something that has this kind of, they call it unilateral exit, which is what Nick described. Basically, you can come out if everything else fails, you always have a back out online on chain. And so in that sense, only Lightning and MercuryLayer, and potentially also when, if it ever gets released, Arc, have this property of this unilateral exit. But I mean, Mercury is very different from Lightning and what it can do and what its limitations are. I mean, the biggest problem with Lightning is this issue of liquidity. You basically have to open channels with people, and in order to make a payment, you have to have an existing channel, and it has to be enough liquidity along the route. And, whereas Mercury layer state chains don't have that problem at all. You can literally just send to anyone. There's no liquidity issue. There's no doesn't need to be backed by anything. However, the biggest limitation, I think, is the fact that in Mercury state chains, you can only send whole UTXOs. So this makes it difficult as a general kind of payment system where you want to pay someone an arbitrary amount, which Lightning is very good for. And that led us to our kind of initial use case of a privacy system, because obviously it works very well for privacy. If you have like fixed amounts, you have kind of fixed UTXOs, and you can swap them with people, and you have this big anonymity set that you get from that. But yeah, like Nick said, I think we want to explore a lot more other use cases now, and I think it really is just a case of finding where it can be very useful. And I think it can be used in combination with Lightning for the part of Lightning, the part which Lightning struggles with, which is the liquidity issue. And so some kind of combination of Lightning and state chains, I think, is definitely there's definitely a lot of promise there.
Right. So what is the difference between a state chain and what we call a side chain? And how is the MercuryLayer better than the average state chain?
So, well, sidechain, the only current side chains we have are like federated side chains, so they're custodial. If you want to use a side chain, the side chain essentially exists as a ledger to update ownership of Bitcoin, which has been sent to essentially a multi-sig in the case of like Liquid, same as RSK. But that ultimately that Bitcoin is under the custody of whoever has the keys to that multi-sig. And that's the big problem with custodial kind of federated sidechains. And I think the thing that we're most bullish about Mercury in that, although there's a trust assumption in Mercury, it is fully non-custodial, and the blinding means that it's a lot more legal to run a state chain entity server without any KYC than we think, for example, a federated sidechain. So, I mean, at the moment, say Liquid and RSK are acting in a permissionless way, but we don't know how long that's going to last, and how long this custodial kind of federation is going to be allowed to operate, essentially running privacy infrastructure without any kind of KYC or AML. I mean, there are obviously, I guess you're very aware of Drivechains, and that's an alternative model for a non-custodial sidechain, which as I guess is a different thing. And obviously that is requires some kind of this soft fork, which may or may not ever happen. But yeah, I guess that's there's the difference really between MercuryLayer, where you have, I mean, the other part of it is scalability as well. The sidechains are just other blockchains, and so fundamentally they don't solve the scaling problem, because you basically just Bitcoin doesn't scale because you have to verify everything. It's a fixed finite block size. Same with the sidechain, same with Liquid. You just you've just kind of move the problem, kick the can down the road a little bit. And if Liquid ever does become very popular, it will have exactly the same scaling problems as Bitcoin does. Whereas with state chains, you only verify the UTXO history that you have. So in that sense, it scales a lot better than sidechains.
Yeah, I guess you foreshadowed my next question, which I guess Commerce Block is known for building privacy products. And I see MercuryLayer as something which concerns mostly privacy, but it's also about scalability. So I was going to ask you, which one do you see as the priority for the MercuryLayer?
I mean, I could.
Neither and both. If that makes sense.
I think I mean, the first Mercury wallet was privacy focused, but the world is changing. It's more difficult to have a product entirely focused on privacy. I think as the world is changing in lots of unfortunate ways, and the Mercury layer is fundamentally a lot more private than the original Mercury wallet, because we've now completely blinded the process, so the server doesn't even know it's dealing with Bitcoin, let alone which Bitcoin. And we've incorporated features, so like atomic transfer features that are going to allow people to swap coins completely privately off chain. Although we're getting out of the business of running a coordinator, which we did with the previous Mercury wallet. So we're going to, and we're working on ways that you could use, like maybe Nostr as a way to coordinate swaps and allow people to kind of find each other and coordinate coin swap. I mean, one of the big improvements with Mercury layer for privacy is that in Mercury wallet, if you wanted to gain and then do a coin swap, the server would be aware of the coins that have swapped, and so you need to do lots and lots of swaps in order to kind of gain anonymity from the Mercury server. But in the new version, the Mercury server is completely blind, so essentially you get 100% privacy just by doing a single coin swap. And so we want to support this, although going forward we won't kind of market it as a privacy solution or do any kind of coordinating or anything like that. I don't know if you want to add to that, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are, you probably tell by our accents, we're British. We used to run things offshore. I mean, we now run things in the UK. We've been working pretty hard to work with the local regulation. And I think that's what you have to do in this world. And the stuff we now run, it can run in the UK, which I think gives a bit more trust as well. Because one of the questions people says, well, what happens if you wake up in the morning and Mercury layer's gone or the Lightning infrastructure's gone? There's a bit more trust because we are running this in the UK. We have got legal clarity on what we can do, and a lot of our designs are based around that. And even though we're legal now, laws can change, but we're hoping because we are legal now, then that will stay for quite a while. And I think that's quite important going forward. But if people want to run coordinators themselves on the Nostr protocol, charge money for that, that's up to them. I mean, we're a blinded solution. We don't know how people use this, and we're encouraging all sorts of use cases. I mean, I think I've been quite open about this on Twitter. Probably 70% of the requests are around ordinals. No, I'm not into JPEGs, but I'm not going to judge people who are. It's a permissionless system. It is what it is. But yeah, that's our position.
Oh, but that's very interesting because you have a product, basically a layer, which is designed around the idea of privacy, but why would these guys who do ordinals want to have any sort of privacy? Because that defeats
Well, I can
the
explain to you why
purpose.
ordinals people like it, because obviously ordinals rely on Bitcoin transaction fees to move them around. If you were to put them on a state, if you were to use our blinded server signature service, they can move them around for a number of times without any on-chain fee. They can do swaps. So if I've got two ordinals and I want to swap it for one of yours, we could do like an atomic swap, and this all happens off-chain with no fees. And clearly, we didn't design MercuryLayer with ordinals in mind. We predate ordinals, but it seems that there is a use case there, and it seems ordinals is not going away. They're a big community. They have reached many of the ordinals communities have reached out to us, and As we said, we're a blinded signature service. We don't know how people use us if it's for ordinals. I have no objection. We wouldn't filter it anyway. And, if ordinals guys end up, doing less on chain, that's hopefully lowers the fees for us economic users.
Yeah, I mean, people criticize ordinals for basically as spam or taking up block space, but if you can provide a solution that enables to take a lot of that transaction volume off chain, then that's good for everyone. And yeah, it just seems like it's a natural kind of the fundamental property of ordinals is that you have individual UTXOs which hold the value, and that's obviously that's the limitation of MercuryLayer as well, that you can only operate on the level of individual UTXOs. So yeah, and again, I think I don't necessarily have to be a fan of the of the concept to see that, yeah, if it can be used to benefit that and take transaction volume off chain, then it's good for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we internally are focused on more research between state chains and Lightning, and we've done bits and bobs, but that's quite a hard thing to crack. But maybe the work on ordinals will give us ideas to help crack that. I mean, innovation leads to other innovation as well, and we have to fund it. We want users to be able to keep the protocol going as well. And that's if it's funded by ordinals in the short term, while we work on research on how we can integrate state chains into Lightning or potentially into Fedimint. I mean, last week we were advancing Bitcoin. We spoke to Obi, the guy from Fedimint, and they said that they've been looking at how to integrate state chains and Fedimint. So, it doesn't stop with what we're doing now. We want to see how we can integrate it into other protocols, and I think that's key. There needs to be some sort of commonality in these layer twos, and there needs to be some way of moving between them.
Yeah, you said something interesting there, that you have the ordinal people paying the bills, and that was my question, my next question basically. What is the economic model behind the Mercury layer? How do you collect any kind
Yeah,
of money?
we haven't
Because
fixed
you,
it
you
yet.
said there are no transaction fees, so
Yeah, so we haven't fixed it yet, but it's likely to be in the region of $50 or €50 because we're in the UK. We probably should charge in euros, but likely €50 per session, and that's a blinded signature session that lasts for a year. Now, every time you do a transition, use the server, you lose 8 hours. That's part of the protocol, the way it works. But essentially, that's roughly the model. So those guys, instead of paying a Bitcoin transaction fee every time, that they can reduce a lot of their cost, we get the money, and that's how we're funded.
So yeah, just to, I guess, add on that. I mean, the previous in the MercuryWallet, we charge like a withdrawal fee. So people could deposit any amount, and then we charge like 0.5% withdraw. And when the withdrawal transaction then had an additional output, which paid the fee. But we couldn't do that with the new version because it's completely blinded. So we got no way of enforcing any fee collection on chain. So now, yeah, we basically the setup that we've now designed and set up, you have an access token in order to be able to create a stake coin. And it's through that we can control, we can control access. Now, again, it's completely privacy preserving and blinding. And obviously, yeah, whichever way we've got an implementation that you can pay with a Lightning, basically to get one of these access tokens. So, yeah, if you wanted to create a stake coin, you would go, get a Lightning invoice, pay it, get this access token, and then you'll be able to deposit into the Mercury layer.
yeah, that's very interesting. And how can users interact or get started with the Mercury layer? What is the easiest way to onboard?
So we have a test environment up at the moment, and we have a public API, which I mean, everything's open source, so nothing that we have couldn't be copied and pasted by someone else. Obviously, well, there is some skill in securing a server, locking it down, doing all that infrastructure, which obviously is what we keep private. But there is a Rust-based WASM API that anyone can integrate with, and yeah, people already started playing with it. And the earlier people play with it, the easier it is to make changes for different use cases. Because, as you know, things ossify once they go in production, once you get more users. So we would like any comments, complaints to be done earlier rather than later.
But yeah, so the original Mercury wallet, it became, I mean, it's like Nick was talking about earlier. I mean, it became a bit of a closed thing. So we had this wallet, which was just a desktop app. And it became a bit of a monster. We spent so much time on the UI, and a lot of the business logic got intertwined with UI, and we ended up with this kind of mix of WebAssembly and JavaScript. And people came to us and said, how could I integrate Mercury into something else? And it said, well, actually, it's not that easy because of the way that the wallet ended up evolving. So one of the big things we did with MercuryLayer is we wanted to keep a clean slate, brand new API, and to make it a lot more accessible, so that we created a very easy to use, like essentially a library with the API, which is kind of cross-platform. We've done this with WebAssembly, and we've created, example like clients with JavaScript, React, and Rust. And so, yeah, we want it to be very easy for other people to come and use these libraries directly into other wallets, third-party wallets. And so we are going to release a desktop and mobile wallet as an example of how to do it. But yeah, as our experience with the original Mercury wallet, I think we realized that the future is not some specific kind of monolithic wallet app that we want really to get this used and the libraries used and integrated with other projects. But I mean, if people want to try it out now, I mean, we could, it's on use testnet, and you can download any one of our clients, and obviously create stake coins, deposit testnet Bitcoin, and test out the process of sending the coin from user to user, and seeing how it all works. But yeah, we're planning to probably turn on the mainnet, I guess, in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I think it would be a very good idea to take a look at your webpage and comment on what's there, and maybe ask some questions based on your presentation. But before that, I gotta present an ad for this show's sponsor, Wasabi Wallet. I guess you guys are competitors right now in some way,
No,
except that
not at all.
Wasabi Wallet works on
No,
chain.
we're not competitors of Wasabi at all. Big fans of those guys, and like what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in case you're not aware and you're listening to this, Wasabi Wallet is this CoinJoin wallet which works on the Bitcoin main chain, the base layer. And just recently they had this very large CoinJoin which put together more than 300 inputs and outputs. The amounts are not equal, so it's very hard to associate what comes in, what goes out. For remixes, so if you do a second CoinJoin in this coordinated setup, you're not gonna pay any coordination fee. And much more than this, I know that the FUD about coin joins is that once you do coin join, you're not gonna be able to use your coins on regulated exchanges or whatever. What Wasabi did was to integrate this buy anything button, which is a direct communication mechanism with ShopInBit, but it's routed via Tor. And you're telling them what you want to buy and where you want it to get delivered, and they make it happen, and then you pay directly with Bitcoin from your coin joins, no questions asked. It's super cool. They make Bitcoin fungible and easy to use in commerce, and I guess you can think of certain use cases. You can even buy cars with that. So if you do want to buy a car, you can do it with your CoinJoin Bitcoin. Download the wallet from wasabiwallet.io. And while I prepare the web page that I'm gonna share on the screen, let me know, fellas, what do you think about Wasabi? Or if you designed Wasabi, what would you do differently? Maybe some feedback is useful.
Well, we have a weird relationship with Wasabi in that we've worked a lot with Nothing Much, as you know, was heavily involved in the Wabi Sabi protocol. The original Adam Fiskor, he reached out to us multiple times during the MercuryWallet days, MercuryLayer days, always very complimentary. So, and I think I've got the CEO of Wasabi. We bump into him quite a lot of conferences. Yeah, fans of theirs. I mean, it's a hard space. I've used the wallet. I think it's a good product. Obviously, we work with Nothing Much. He's, he thinks some of the, he's kind of told us some of the things he'd like to prepare. So we are a bit biased. So Nothing Much was involved in bit with, he kind of reviewed a bit of Mercury wallet and MercuryLayer. He did help us on some of the Tor issues we're having, and obviously he helped us a bit on CivKit. So we know those guys quite well through all of this. But in terms of improving it, I don't know. I think it's a hard space. I think my experience with MercuryWallet is I think people who don't build wallets in this space, they don't now realize how hard it is to work with Tor. And that was probably a lot of our problems, just dealing with Tor. So I do congratulate in the way Wasabi have kind of hidden the complexity of Tor from their users. But there were some days that MercuryWallet was just unusable. And we did things like, I mean, I know Wasabi basically ended up running their own Tor node. We thought there was too much legal issues there, so we ended up providing a switch from Tor to I2P. I mean, that's probably, I would like Wasabi to maybe support other protocols other than Tor. Nothing against Tor, but I think we can't be so reliant on one protocol, because although Tor's improved a lot, I think any one protocol is a DDoS attack waiting to happen. But no, but I think they've done a great job of like hiding the challenges of Tor very well.
Yeah, it's very difficult to design this with the limitations of Tor and make a nice usable wallet. And yeah, it's a lovely wallet, Wasabi. Really nice UI. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a whole nother discussion that would take a long time, talking about the issues with coin swaps compared to coin joins, which is quite an interesting, privacy discussion. But there are. I think we struggled with. I mean, potentially coin swaps can be a lot more private than coin joins, but there are big difficulties with perception. The thing is with coin joins, everyone understands what they are and how they work. And coin swaps are a different kettle of fish. But yeah, maybe that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, and look, maybe if MercuryLayer becomes a bit more in the mind share, maybe we could convince Max to basically integrate MercuryLayer into Wasabi and do some. They have experience of running, coin join coordinators. They could run a coin swap coordinator. I'm not putting pressure on them. This may not be necessary, but we'd happily work with them if that's something. Maybe that's something I'll mention. But I don't know where they are mentally, where they're thinking of continuing with the product, but that might be something useful to them. Who knows? We're entering a high fee environment, clearly. I mean, obviously there's a lot of focus on the Bitcoin price, but if Bitcoin price goes to what some people think it could go, it's going to be a high fee environment, and maybe Wasabi are going to look at ways to get around that. I don't think Lightning is probably something they would touch, because that's they've been public about that. So maybe MercuryLayer and coin swaps. Who knows?
Yeah, you're lucky right now because Max Hillbrand is one of the most active listeners of the show, so he will hear this and consider it. It's pretty cool that the sponsor is also a big fan of my work, and I think this is the perfect marriage. Or is it a marriage? I don't know. It's the perfect match. And
Don't
also
say marriage, because most marriages end up in divorce. Say friendship.
yeah. And also you mentioned Nothing Much. That's Yuval Kogman. I've had him in season 10, episode 7 of the show. If you want to hear him talk about Bitcoin privacy and what he did with Wasabi, which is version 2.0 of Wasabi Wallet, then you got to check that out. It's season 10, episode 7 of the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. Now, after all of this innuendo, let's spend some time looking at the MercuryLayer website. And I'm sharing my screen right now. I hope you can both see it. So this is the webpage of MercuryLayer. I said MercuryWallet before, haven't I?
Yeah.
Sorry, old habits die hard. Bitcoin MPC Layer 2 protocol using blinded signatures. What is MPC?
MPC stands for multi-party computation. It's a general word. It gets abused a lot these days. But essentially, it means, at a fundamental level, it means that two parties can basically perform a single computation, but with neither revealing different inputs to the computation. So in MercuryLayer, essentially, this is used for describing the fact we do a two-party signature. So we generate a single signature using two key shares. Also, the process by which we update the private key shares when ownership changes from one owner to another owner. the key shares are updated in a way that the address doesn't change, but each participant's share of the key updates so that previous owner can't then collude.
Yes, I see that your website is pretty technical. It looks more like a scientific presentation of the concept with all the mathematics of transactions. It's
Yeah,
not in marketing mode, to put it like this.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, as thing goes forward, we might update this, make it a bit more user friendly. This is, I guess, we put in a version of the initial kind of paper for the MercuryLayer, which basically explains the protocol and each step of the process.
Let's just say the website was built by engineers, not by marketing people.
Yeah.
And you can blame me for that.
No, but it's pretty cool because you're honest about what this is. You're not trying to make some bullish narratives about what MercuryLayer is. You're allowing builders, developers to acquire an interest and see everything that they need to know before building on top of this layer. So I think this is the good approach. I also told this to Paul Sztorc that since he created the company, Layer 2 Labs, the website became dumber in the sense that you have these terms about, oh, it's gonna scale, it's gonna be private, it's so nice. But before that, it was more interesting because it was more academic, to put it like this. It had more references. I don't know. I guess I'm a different kind of audience.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be transparent, I built the website with a Rust templating engine for a bit of fun to learn that. But you know, as we get more, hopefully we get more users, as it's more successful, we'll build cute explorers, we'll build more stuff around nice marketing, around marketing, block explorers, stuff like that. And there's time for that. But this is really just to get it out there, because a lot of people ask us, how does it work? How does it work? We just wanted it on the website, send them there. If you want to go low level, see the cryptography, it's there, and just be direct about it.
So you said something about the API key. How do you get that? I'm on the website. You go to GitHub.
Well, it's not live yet, so we are in the process of going live because but that's there'll be an update on the website on how people can start using it.
Yeah, so if you wanted to use the testnet version, if you go to our GitHub, which is github.com, the commerce block, and then MercuryLayer, there's there's a document basically that it gives instructions on how to basically install a client, how to access the testnet version, and get a testnet access token.
Yeah, I was gonna open the GitHub, but I have to do 2FA and input a code. And during the previous live stream that I did, I got rugged because I had Brian Bishop on and he spoke about his web cache system and he showed me how it works and stuff like that. And I opened the wallet, I did everything on live stream, and somebody stole the funds from my wallet because everything was visible, and I thought it was super funny. I don't want to get my GitHub account hacked right now.
I hope it was only test coins.
Yeah, so by looking at this, I see that the structure of your web page is that you have an overview, you have a mention about statechains and blinding, and then you have... So there's a distinction between the MercuryLayer and the MercuryLayer protocol. Can you explain it?
Well, it's more of an API. Like that's the interaction between what you do on the client side and the interaction you do with the server. So that's what would be explained and cryptography used there. So it's not like it's not a distributed system like I'd say that the Lightning Network. I mean, in theory, other people could run MercuryLayer instances. People always ask us, do we support it? Yeah, we'd love to, and when we're open about it, people say that's a good thing, but no one ever comes because there's a lot of complexity in running a backend server. I think we're seeing that in Lightning where kind of pleb nodes are dropping off because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And this is where I have sympathy for like people who maybe criticize Liquid, the Federation members, running a full, always available 24/7, $99 99.9% high availability federation nodes is not easy. But yeah, we're probably going to add some stuff there later on how people could run their own instances if there's interest.
Okay, so let's make this a bit more practical. Can you describe some use cases for the Mercury layer? Very simple for the average user to understand.
I mean, when I explain it to like, the less technical crowd, like we go to meetups in London where they're a bit more less technical, it's just virtual OpenDimes. I'm sure you've been to Bitcoin conferences where people wear like an OpenDime around their neck. All MercuryLayer is it facilitates virtualizing that. You could call it, I mean, people now say V2UTXOs, which came from the YARC world, but we're just virtualizing a UTXO and able to move that off chain. In terms of use cases, there are many. I mean, Ordinals is the obvious one because that helps visualize it. But these could be large bills. I mean, they think of gold bars. What are gold bars? They're blocks of high amounts of money that can move around off chain with no settlement fee, and that's where we are. And I think as we see fees increase on the blockchain, which I think is going to happen with the price going up, these layer twos are going to get a lot more interest. I mean, it's going to be hard to move significant amounts of money between different fedis, between different sidechains, and I think MercuryLayer facilitates that at virtually a ridiculously low cost.
Yeah, the fact that there's no liquidity constraints, you can send any amount to anyone. But yeah, I guess it's visualizing this constraint that it is a fixed amount in a UTXO. So, and I think that's the challenge, that we're going to face, because I mean, it's an extremely useful principle. But yeah, getting that into other, integrating it with the services and being able to help, move around these chunks of money. And I think that's the challenge, obviously, with limitation in terms of payments. So you wouldn't be able to go. I think we can be honest and say you're not going to be able to go and pay for your coffee with a MercuryLayer because you are limited by, it's a whole UTXO. You're limited by the on-chain fee, and so the amount, for example, you have in it a stake coin, it doesn't make sense for this to be a very small amount. It's chunks of money. I mean, other use cases, I guess, privacy is very good because you have these fixed amounts, so you move off chain. I mean, any case where you want to move a chunk of value off chain, instantly.
Yeah, and what's the greatest thing about it is, I mean, the server code is relatively simple, complex cryptography, but we only have two or three database tables. We store virtually no data. We essentially are a blinded signer. Think of someone who can't see signing checks, but we co-sign checks with other people. So the likelihood of us getting shut down is minimal because all we are is a blinded signing service. And I think that's why we wanted to make it an open API and not have a wallet so that we can create creativity. Because I think in a high fee environment, there are going to be challenges moving Bitcoin, and there are going to be people are going to search for optimizations. If people are moving Bitcoin all the time and transaction fees are $100, $500, you're going to start seeing the creation of settlement systems, and you're going to want a settlement system that's regulatory resilient. How are you going to move large chunks of money into Fedis, for example? Lightning, we're a fan of Lightning. We run Lightning nodes ourselves, but it is very capital inefficient. That's why I think Lightning is very much suited for small payments, but you do need someone to manage liquidity there. This has no liquidity inefficiencies. I mean, it just doesn't exist. People compare MercuryLayer to Arc a lot. Now, first of all, we don't need a soft fork. A soft fork would be great. I mean, we've spoken to the CTV guys, very supportive of what they're doing. It would help us for sure. It would remove some of the constraints we have, but a soft fork may not ever happen, but we don't need one. We're live now without soft fork. And also Arc has liquidity needs. To run an Arc node, you're going to have to provide liquidity for the way they kind of move those VTXOs. Here we have no liquidity. There's no money locked in our servers. We're just co-signing blindedly transactions. And I think that's where people are going to see, well, this works now, doesn't need a soft fork, doesn't need liquidity.
Yeah, you mentioned OpenDimes, and this is my opportunity to promote the work of two Belgian guys who are called Bastien and Baudouin. They created the Satodime card, which is a Java card that they programmed to store Bitcoin. It's basically a very privacy-friendly way to transfer Bitcoin between you and your friends. You can give
I
this to
think me
someone.
me and Tom, we met the guy behind it on Thursday night, didn't we? At Advancing Bitcoin, the Java card.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the same
But
guy.
is it
Or it
Sadodime?
must be, yeah.
Because Java card is the name of the general product that you can buy.
May not be, but
Oh,
we
okay, yeah.
definitely we were at a meetup because I was advancing Bitcoin last week, and he was showing us his Java card, and he was showing, we were like, wow, that's a little VM running there with a little Bitcoin signature service, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, they're about 25 euro, and you get, I think, a 5% discount with promo code BTC2KVR. Get them and help me buy a Supra because that's why we're all here, right? To buy Supras. Anyway, I have to read a message that I received from Paul Sztorc, and then I'm gonna move on to the next question. And he
Sure.
said, "Is Blackstream going downstream? Has RGB getting you down and brown? After a long day of listening to Peter McRetard, why not feel something for a change? Feel alive. Join Layer 2 Labs and make everyone feel sad and frustrated and angry. Our next ritual is at 3 a.m. in the ancient forest. See you there. I'm Paul Sztorc and I approve this message. Or do I?"
Fair enough.
Okay.
They have a very funny way of marketing. Some people dislike it and they say they're making a joke of this whole concept of promoting layer 2s. But I think they make some good points. Anyway, what's the difference between Drivechains and statechains? I know you mentioned it briefly, but in specifics, it's that
Why?
Drivechains are storing everything just like Bitcoin, while statechains are only about UTXOs.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd say maybe a dumb version is, the state of, you could argue that a state chain is like a client side chain. I mean, all the states are stored on the client side. The server doesn't have any state, whereas, in a side chain, the state is stores in another set of infrastructure, the side chain. But yeah, they're very different protocols. I don't think you really want to compare them. They're at the opposite ends of what they're trying to do.
I mean, a drive chain is another blockchain. So,
Yeah.
I mean, everything needs to be verified by everyone, um, which is the model. So, yeah, I mean, um, but yeah, and obviously, a drive chain is secured by proof of work. You have, this um, the the peg is secured by proof of work, which is still kind of decentralized, but there's some issues with how secure that is. But yeah, fundamentally, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not as opposed to drive chains as a lot of people are. I think I don't see it as an existential risk to Bitcoin like some people do. And it's like either it works, in which case a lot of activity would then go to the drive chain, or it doesn't work. So I don't see the risk, but yeah, I think there's gonna be an uphill battle for them trying to get that soft fork in. So yeah.
I think they're gonna do it without a soft fork with BitVM and
Okay,
maybe
that's one way of doing it.
Ordinals.
There are a lot of complexities there, though. That is quite there's some trade-offs there. But I mean, yeah. Good luck to them.
Anyway, I think drive chains find themselves in two extremes when they're being described. On one hand, people say no, they're not gonna get any traction because in the absence of the speculative token, nobody wants to use the Ethereum technology. And this is one extreme. The other
Mm.
extreme is when they say, oh, but if this becomes too successful, it's an existential threat for Bitcoin because too much activity is gonna happen on these side chains, and you're
Mm.
gonna take away fees from the base layer and make it less secure, I guess. But I guess you can also say this about state chains, right? Because you're taking away some activity from the base layer, which means that fewer fees get paid to the miners.
Yes, but I don't think anyone would use the clunkiness of a state chain unless there was a reason to it, and that would be high fees. I think, and you could say the same with Lightning. Lightning's quite tricky to use, the whole liquidity issue. People only use it because the fees are uncooperative. Everyone wants to be on the base chain. I mean, the base chain is easier to use. In terms of side chains, I'm not anti sidechains. My only concern is that we do have sidechains in Liquid and rootstock, and the uptake has been, not amazing. And but yeah, I guess I'm very anti ossification crowd. I don't want us to ossify. I think we should allow things like Drivechains, CTV to happen and let the free market decide. And Paul's a builder. He's definitely a smart guy. He should be allowed to build it and let the free market decide if there's a use case there. I mean, that's what I always try and push.
I was gonna crack a joke earlier when you said that you're regulated and you work with state chains and say you
We're
guys
not
are
regulated.
statists.
We're 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 legal. I wouldn't say regulated. That'd be the wrong word. We're legal. We're not going to go to a UK prison for running it. But they could change the laws, so I don't want to shout about it too much. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're designed specifically so that we are not regulated. Yeah, that we don't need to worry about
But
regulation.
yeah, laws can change, as you know. So we have to. I mean, if you look, I think talking about your friends, the CoinJoin guys, I mean, they've latched onto a rule that says that so long as they're non-custodial, they're cool. But I think the Treasury in the US are trying to push changes, and that could happen to us as well. So we're not going to show off or be excited about that. We've got to keep the big fight and keep on making sure that dumb rules that prohibit innovation are dumb, and be noisy about it.
Mm. But I think yeah, we have had some doubts or criticism about the name state chain and state coin that we use, because it kind of does imply it's like a government thing, or like a CBDC or something, obviously. But it's state coin, just I don't know, it just seems naturally to roll off the tongue when you think about state chains. But yeah, maybe we have to rebrand.
When we did Lightning stuff and called it state channels, that sounded cooler. I thought that was
Yeah.
But that is a hard thing to get state chains integrated with Lightning. It's conceptually it sounds easy because you're moving around private keys. Why can't there be private keys of Lightning channels? But then you have to think about what happens if a backup on old state is broadcast, if you're moving the state coin and the Lightning channel is being used, and then you've got a lot of edge cases there that could wreck the whole thing. So we've parked that for a while, but we still think about it.
Yeah, there's this guy from Liverpool. I had him on the show. His name is Matthew Croghan or something. Croghan. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But he is working on Nix OS, and Nix has no states. And he was saying, so, do you like the state? Do you want to abolish it? And everyone says, hell yeah. Of course, use Nix OS because there's no state in Nix OS. It's a pretty tongue-in-cheek kind of joke.
Abolish the state and state coins.
Yeah, we're not that Mad Max.
Anyway, I was going to remark that all of these layer 2s, and it doesn't matter how you define a layer 2, anything that uses Bitcoin and is not on the base layer can be remotely defined a layer 2, even WBTC to some extent. But I'm going to get punched in the face for that. I'm going to stop here.
No, I agree with you. Wrap Bitcoin is a layer 2.
So all of these are a very nice leverage against the base layer becoming too, or having too big fees.
Mm-hmm.
How should I put it? Like, if the fees get too expensive for the average user, then the average user is going to say, okay, I'm not going to use this anymore. I'm going to switch to this, which means that there's going to be a natural regulation mechanism to make sure that the fees are affordable for the users, and they're never going to get crazy expensive. I mean, it's an interesting mechanism as a leverage for the users.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I think every layer 2 is going to have to sacrifice a bit of trust, and that's got to play. I mean, I think sometimes people want the trust of the base layer, but they don't accept the layer 2 is not going to be as trustworthy as the base layer. And I think that acceptance needs to be accepted, and I don't think that's understood fully. But layer 2s are going to be around, they are going to exist, and they're not going to be as trustworthy as the base layer, and that's why they're layer 2s. I think
all of these things. I think all these things should be part of the conversation. Like, this we talked about it earlier, this distinction that only these things are layer 2s. I think if you want to call a layer 2 that, but I think we need to consider the custodial things, sidechains, Fedi, and even, you go at the very, top, just the databases, Coinbase, or, people do use these to transact Bitcoin. And these are all things that people use to make payments in Bitcoin, which is what, Bitcoin is all about. And yeah, unfortunately, Bitcoin doesn't scale, and all of these things have different trade-offs, and yeah, they should all be part of the discussion about how can we enable people to use Bitcoin at scale, which is crucial.
Yeah, there's someone in the chat. His name is Volodymyr Moisyuk. Anyway, he says he's interested to hear about Lightning Latch. What's Lightning Latch?
I can talk about that. I mean, this was this came about from, yeah, I mean, one of the use cases being if you did have a stake coin and you wanted to swap it for a Lightning payment. So, you might ask, well, what's the point of that? One of them might be privacy. You might want to purchase a coin with Lightning that you can then not trace to your Lightning payment. The other one is maybe if that coin has a value which is different from the Bitcoin value, maybe because it's an ordinal. And you may want to make an arbitrary payment for that. And so we wanted a way to support that in a completely non-custodial way. Eventually, that this can be integrated in some kind of either other swapping service or DEX. So yeah, the basic idea is that you have an atomic transfer of a Mercury stake coin and a Lightning payment. So that means that either they both complete and each party, the other party receives stake coin, the other party receives their Lightning payment, or neither complete, all while being non-custodial. So yeah, essentially this comes in a modification of the Mercury API where uses the concept of these HODL invoices or HODL payments on Lightning, where you can you hold back the pre-image of the payment hash of the Lightning invoice, and so the Lightning payment can complete, but it doesn't finalize until the pre-image of the payment hash is revealed. So that anybody receiving a Lightning payment can then confirm that the payment is there, but it doesn't finalize until this pre-image is revealed. And essentially, the Mercury API will generate this pre-image and this hash, and only when both parties have verified that the stake coin transfer has been verified and the Lightning payment has been verified, then both parties unlock, and then the stake coin transfer can complete and the keys are updated, and then the custody is changed, and then the Lightning payment finalizes. So yeah, I mean, maybe that was a complex explanation, but in essence, yeah. So effectively, yeah, it's a way of allowing this atomic transfer of Lightning and stake coin transfer.
I'm very happy that I have such smart listeners who are engaging with the content, because I wouldn't have come up with that one. I wasn't even aware that it's possible. I wasn't sure what latching refers to.
It was just a name we came up with. So we came up with this. We developed the protocol for doing this only like in the past couple of weeks, and yeah, we wanted to come up with a kind of a snazzy sounding name, and latch is obviously something you have in a door that locks it. So Lightning latch, kind of the word seems
But it sounds like a subatomic swap or something.
All right,
Submarine, I think.
So I guess it's similar conceptually to that, yeah. But essentially, yeah, you're doing a swap of a Lightning payment for a Mercury coin, and that, yeah, that does enable. There's a lot of use cases for that.
Where do you see the project in 5 years if it succeeds? Do you see it being this bridge between various layer 2s of Bitcoin?
I think more use cases are going to appear that we haven't thought about with high transaction fees, but ultimately I think people will use this. If you're doing regular settlement, I think this is where this fits in. Just think of gold bars. That's you can move this without liquidity constraints. It's not suited for like specific payments like Lightning, but it doesn't have the liquidity and efficiency of Lightning, and that's where I see it fitting in. In terms of retail use, it's probably going to be novel things like Ordinals, maybe that's probably the limit of it being used from a retail point of view. But for things like, I mean, I'm a believer in Fedi type solutions. I don't know if it's going to be Fedi, but do look a lot at Fedi because of the work we do at CivKit. But if you think of CivKit, they're essentially order books, which is run by kind of like a federation where people can trade with each other. They're going to have to settle with other order books. They're going to have to settle with other services. Lightning, has a use case there, but I think that there's something missing, and I think that's where MercuryLayer would fit in.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to find out more about your takes on this Uncle Jim kind of approach, which reinvents banking with Fedimints and stuff. But before that, let me read another ad, and then we can talk about that. So this is from Hodling, which is a service from Switzerland, and they provide this consultancy for large holders and businesses and anything which requires multi-sig. And they have this message at Hodling SA. We're happy to help simplify the complexities of Bitcoin security, providing peace of mind through a secure, private, and self-managed environment. In the Swiss tradition of precision and security, our services assist you in setting up, maintaining, and operating a self-custodial Bitcoin infrastructure, from the selection of multi-signature configurations in hardware wallets to ensuring your setup is robust and tailored to your needs. Check out their service at hodling.ch, ch being the domain for Switzerland. And now, Nicholas, tell me more about why you're so bullish on Fedimints, because to me it seems like they sort of defeat the purpose of Bitcoin. They are custodial. You have to trust someone that they're not going to steal from you. They do benefit from scalability and privacy, but they're not trust minimized in any way.
Well, I think we've always taken the approach, we work with the Bitcoin we've got, and we don't pray for opcodes or changes that may never happen or end up in political debates. But if you look at the Bitcoin we've got right now, it's probably one of the better solutions. But there's a lot of caveats there. I don't see a world where there's a bunch of Fedimints that we all interact with and we take their token, because they would get whacked, they would get shut down. But in terms of smaller quorums that basically do shared custody, maybe share management of a Lightning node, maybe optimize that Lightning node with MercuryLayer, I think that could work, but they have to stay small. I think, I've been on your show before with Ray from CivKit. He says an army of mosquitoes. I mean, an army of mosquitoes is hard to take out. If we end up with 10 Fedimints, they're going to get nuked. I mean, they're going to get shut down by regulators. They're going to get shut down. And that's what we saw. If you look at what do people mean about free banking, in the UK, we obviously had banks. Middle class people didn't use them because they were too expensive. A bunch of middle class people cooperated together and created building societies. Those build societies worked well, but they became very big and then ended up becoming regulated like banks. I think Fedis have to stay very small. I have no idea what the number is, but if they become big, they're going to get, regulated. But if me, you, and Tom, and a couple of other guys, have some smart software that can share a UTXO or share some Bitcoin between us, share a Lightning node, that potentially could work. I mean, there's a lot of caveats there, but that's the way I see Bitcoin scaling with the Bitcoin we have right now. And I'm not worried. I don't believe in this stuff. Oh, Bitcoin needs to support 8 billion people. Half those people are not going to use Bitcoin. They're going to use an ETF or Coinbase. We don't necessarily need to support 8 billion people, but we need to support enough people that stay self-sovereign to keep the system honest.
Yeah, I think the reality is that we're very interested in technology and want to come up with the best solutions we can, keep Bitcoin non-custodial. But the only real thing that works for payments at scale currently is custody, and the eCash is the best way of doing this, like privately. But yeah, I am worried that it's people aren't going to get away with this at scale with regulation and KYC requirements. And I think that like Nick says, I think the only way this is going to work is with small kind of issuers, and we'll see. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how this plays out. But I think it's definitely going to be part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we crossed 1,000 views on Twitter/X, which is pretty cool, because on YouTube we have about 10, which is sad. I don't know what's wrong with YouTube, but
Too many ads.
Yeah.
too many ads, and I guess there's something wrong with their notifying system because the subscribers don't always see that something new gets posted. I guess they changed the algorithm to prioritize some other types of content over others. But well, it's good. We have 1,000 people who tuned in on Twitter/X, which I think,
But Tuesday morning, I mean, I'm a bit surprised it's that high, so that's great.
yeah, it's really cool. And there's gonna be more in the coming days. So thank you guys for tuning in. I guess I should ask you a last question because you said you can only stay around for 1 hour, and we should keep this short and efficient. So, how can builders create something with MercuryLayer? And ideally, what do you think should get built that's super useful right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, they can build anything that enables, yeah, to transfer an amount of Bitcoin between any people, and you want to do that instantly and for zero marginal fee. So yeah, but there's lots of, I mean, I think as we've said before, I think the fee pressure will start to see use cases kind of develop, or that people will be incentivized to kind of integrate this. I mean, all these scaling solutions, I mean, suffered like Liquid. I guess Liquid's big issue was the fact that for most of its existence, Bitcoin fees have been quite low. And so people aren't really incentivized to use or to go through the effort of trying to integrate with it, since its main chain fees are so low. But I think that's going to change soon, quite dramatically. And then it's going to be people are going to be incentivized to use these technologies, which can give a chunk of efficiency and can save them, a significant amount of money. But yeah, I think we're kind of exploring now the different ways that this can be easily integrated with the kind of existing things and exploring kind of new use cases.
I like how you try to keep it diplomatic and vague in the sense that you don't necessarily say who should use it, you say anyone who needs this. So I guess this is a much better builders.
I guess you can look at, but yeah, you can look at different classes of people. I mean, privacy, there's people that do want privacy and that's their main thing. They're not necessarily concerned about, the speed of the transaction or the cost of the transaction. And yeah, the different people want different things. Some people want something that's instant and they don't mind about fees. Some people want to save money on fees. Some people want privacy. Yeah, I mean, MercuryLayer gives you all of those things.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I lied. I have another last question, but I don't want to make it too long. So you mentioned CTV and the fact that it can help MercuryLayer. And I think there are layers to this, no pun intended. So first of all, do you believe that Bitcoin needs a Covenant soft fork? And which one do you prefer? Because I have had Andrew Polstra on the show last month, and he was promoting UpCat, saying that it's superior to UpCTV because it opens up more use cases. And then there seem to be a lot of people on Twitter saying, no, we shouldn't do CTV, we should do L-enhance or whatever, which is CTV with something else. Do you have any opinion about this? And is there anything that's useful for MercuryLayer?
I mean, my personal view, I mean, I don't think, I mean, there's been enough analysis of several of these, OpCat and OpCTV, that there's no real risk to these. And so I think people kind of arguing about it quite depressing. And the fact that it's taken so long, I mean, in the past, a lot of these things, new opcodes, obviously SegWit was a very big change. Taproot was quite a big change. But previously to that, just activating a new opcode like CLTV, it was done. There was no controversy. People just did it. They thought it might be useful for some future application. So, just why not just add it? It's really easy. And so, yeah, it's a bit depressing that people are kind of like fighting so hard over this. But But yeah, I mean, personally, opcat I think is more general. There's a lot more use cases to opcat, and you can do a lot more things with it. And I think script should be kept as simple as possible. So the simplest like base opcodes that people can then use to make more complex scripts to implement more kind of complex functionality. Yeah, people should just be given the tools, the basic tools. But I've no objection to either opcat or CTV. Yeah, I don't know if you're a fan of both, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wish we would focus a bit maybe on a better scripting language like simplicity, so that, every 2 years we don't basically have another um, code war, if that's the right word, or fight for another scripting change, because I think it's getting a bit tiresome and I think it becomes very religious. And sometimes if we just had something like simplicity added, and then, if we can, all Sztorc can go build his drive chains, we can build better versions of state chains, and the Lightning guys get what they want. That might be a more longer term thing, because I do think it's an energy drain, these opcodes battles, and they get just religious. The argument at some point does not become logical anymore, it becomes religious. I mean, I don't like the way Jeremy Rubin was treated. I think, he did build some cool stuff. He was a smart, it was and is a smart person, but it became religious when, he was trying to push CTV, and people say there's no use case, there was no POC. I think that's BS. We need to incentivize, smart people like Jeremy to build on Bitcoin. Otherwise, we are going to ossify, and we're not going to get, cool layer 2, layer 3 scaling solutions.
I think Jeremy made some mistakes with the way that he promoted CTV, in the sense that the average person did not understand what this is about, and it was easy to frame as an attack, saying, oh no, he's trying to destroy Bitcoin because you're gonna have these vaults that are gonna get regulated and people are not gonna be able to move their funds anymore if they join the vaults and whatever. I think this was the conversation a couple of years ago. And then people started presenting more logical use cases and explaining, we can open more Lightning channels, we can do this and do that, we can create much better trust minimized sidechains with this. And
But I also want to caveat, I don't think, I mean, I'm pro CTV. I mean, we've spoken a lot to those guys about how it could improve state chains. If we got CTV this year, it's going to be years before there's going to be decent software you can use. I mean, I still don't think we've really done a good job of using multisig. Yeah. And why? Because it's quite hard to get the UI right for those kind of scripts. I mean, I think you probably would admit multisig's not easy to use. I mean, a lot of people screw that up, and you can only imagine something like CTV is going to be 10x harder. So I think sometimes it is portrayed as, oh, let's get this opcode and Bitcoin suddenly scales, which is not the case.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, I don't know, having worked on Bitcoin software for years now, the idea of these shared UTXO models with OpCTV and making that into a usable UI kind of, brings out like anxiety attacks. it's going to be a nightmare. But these things take a lot of time to get right, and it's not a magic bullet. People kind of promoted Lightning as this magic bullet. This solves all our problems. No, I mean, CTV will be the same. It gives you a boost, it gives you a wedge. It enables us to get a bit further down the path of making Bitcoin scale. But there's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, Bitcoin is still a very young project, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. The way that we use it today may not be the way that we're going to use it in 10 years. Even if the base layer is not going to change fundamentally, the user experience is going to be very different. And it's very cool that there are all of these projects and all of these experiments. I'm very happy that MercuryLayer exists, and I'm proud of you, Nicholas, and proud of you, Tom, because you basically took a wallet that was super cool, but for some reason did not become popular, and expanded the concept to the point that now you have your own layer, your own sidechain-like being, which does not store anything except for the UTXO states, which is super cool. I wish you best of luck with this, and I hope that there will be some developers listening to this and coming up with creative ideas about stuff that they can do. And what is the best place? So maybe that people listening on Spotify will not get access to the visual side, so they will not see that I presented the website. So I'll let you say where can they access your work and where can they find out more and maybe build on MercuryLayer.
Yeah, so we have the MercuryLayer website, which we keep very informative. We're quite active on Twitter. We try and do like 1 or 2 minute video clips every month, just to explain some of the tech we do, because we realize that in long form we kind of lose people. So we try and do these like 30-second, 1 minute clips of saying what's Lightning Latch, what's MercuryLayer. And then, if you want to dig deeper and need some support, just come to Telegram. A lot of people have come to our Telegram group. They DM me or they DM Tom privately to see how we can help them build or bounce some ideas. And we want that. We want to create a builder's environment. I mean, we're lucky in that one of the fans of MercuryLayer is Nostr, and not Nostr, sorry, is Fiat Jaff, who invented Nostr. But we would love to have that kind of Nostr culture, builder culture on MercuryLayer. I mean, I'm not sure if that's achievable, but that's what we want. And that's, we kind of play with Nostra in the work we do with CivKit, but we want to create that kind of builder environment, builder ecosystem on MercuryLayer. And that's our goal here.
Yeah. Also, I'd add GitHub as well. GitHub commerce block / MercuryLayer basically has all the documentation, instructions how to use the test network, and any kind of people can any issues with it, or can kind of leave issues there, and Telegram's a good place to go, and just if you just want to kind of have a chat or explore some ideas.
Yep. Nicholas, Tom, I'm super proud of your work. Thank you for joining my show, and I wish you best of luck with the MercuryLayer.